Hey guys, how are we doing today? We all good? Great, brilliant, awesome. Give me a sec. I hope you don't mind. I brought breakfast. Really good. You guys probably can't tell. It's a crumpet with cream cheese on it. Oh, yeah. So, hi, I'm Nate. I'm middle class. Also, sorry, if you hear people banging around in the background. We have some painters in redoing our kitchen. Then actually next week too, we have some people redoing our bathroom, so that's really good. Could do with a bit of smoked salmon though. Actually, you know what? I might as well just own it. Hi, I'm Nate. I'm upper class. There we go. Ready? We're all ready. We're all good. We're good. Sound guy? Yeah. Camera? Yeah. You're useless. We don't even use you. Oh. Lighting? Uh-huh. I don't know why you're here either.
Oh. You know what you're mean.
I know, right? He is. And graphics. You mute weirdo. Tragedy is classic. I've always found the genre extraordinarily unique as an entertainment form through how, at its core, the concept is one of misery. That idea that people will actively pursue movies, games, books, or plays that inspire an emotion within the audience that ordinarily they would avoid at all costs in their day-to-day lives is a fascinating insight into the human psyche. Nonetheless, over millennia, the genre has persisted. Maybe admittedly not as the most popular genre in recent years, however definitely a huge part of media history. Perhaps with the most popular example and the elephant in the room being Shakespeare.
You're a nerd!
Hey, come on now, would a nerd like this?
To be or not to be? That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take...
I refute the idea that anyone watching this video is not entirely aware of the beautiful yet frustrating subject of Shakespearean tragedy, with it being represented with such infamous examples such as Macbeth and Romeo and Juliet that today still influence stories dramatically, even if not always consciously. These pieces of work arguably helped invent the genre, at least in its modern definition as a form of drama based on human suffering and mainly the terrible or sorrowful events that befall a main character. Wow, yeah, maybe I am a nerd. Oh, no, hey, come on now, it's okay. Come on,
I'm sorry.
Come on now. No. Hey, no, it's okay. Don't cry.
No, you're right. I'm a stupid,
okay,
ugly nerd. You
No,
know.
I didn't say that. I mean, it's true, but I didn't say it.
Hey! Ow! Go on!
It's got a gun!
Yeah, fall back! Fall back!
Please, I beg it. Please, no, please. I'm sorry, please. Oh,
What have I done? I killed him. I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay, where was I? Now, to enter into a conversation about modern tragedies, which is what we're going to be looking at in this video, we must first look at how it contrasts classical tragedy. For this analysis and comparison, I have found it only appropriate to use examples from both contemporary and classical platforms. So, whereas Shakespeare used the stage, I will be using examples from what I believe is the present day equivalent, film. Specifically, the works of Trainspotting 1996 and The Pursuit of Happyness 2007. As in reference to my title, these are two of my favourite movies. Although, due to the subject matter in question, I have actively only been able to bring myself to watch them twice each. Ever. For the simple reason that they take too much out of me emotionally, and they're too intense to watch on the regular. However, this only speaks to their effectiveness. So, to whoever is watching this, I would recommend these movies with every bone of my 5'11" body. But do be warned, you may just want to hibernate in a state of depression after.
You're 5'10".
Oh, you're not dead. Oh, good. So, let's begin with what I believe is the biggest juxtaposition between traditional Shakespearean stories and my modern current examples. Shakespeare's protagonists are ones in which the general audience, especially at the time, simply could not relate personally to. For example, among the main characters were people like generals and kings and specifically great men of power. The stories were about the scenarios they faced, ones of magic, destiny, and of mass proportion. Now, perhaps the intent of this was to deliver at the time a controversial concept that even the mighty strong leaders are far from above or impervious to the hardships of life. And although an impactful idea, in my opinion, tragedy is so much more effective when we can see ourselves, the audience that is, in the unlucky protagonists. And this is where we look at the contemporary examples. Trainspotting's character of Mark Trenton a reckless drug addict, and The Pursuit of Happyness's Christopher Gardner, a down-on-his-luck father who has made poor investment decisions, are presented to the viewer in scenarios that the audience are far more likely to find themselves in, with the character of Christopher Gardner being particularly innocent and undeserving of his situation. The events that take place within their respective films, such as a broken-up marriage, an eviction from a home, the death of a friend, and in both films the complete lack of money, are ones in which many members of the audience may have experienced themselves. I mean, contrasting to Shakespeare, when was the last time you were watching Macbeth and went, oh yeah, I remember when I was a king? Now, as well as this, even if the audience hadn't experienced those examples of misery shown within the films themselves, at least the films present the current scenarios of the characters build up in a way where the audience can recognize that precisely the same could happen to them. This helps the audience experience sympathy for the main character, due to the fact that they can see parallels with the film in their own lives. Now, this inevitably leads to the feeling of sorrow and mourning in the viewer being dramatically heightened. So in terms of the protagonists, due to the utilization of relatability, I find the modern examples more effective in their tragedy than the classical style. Now, another noticeable key difference within Shakespeare plays and the examples given is the optimism of the climaxes, finales, and endings. Both Trainspotting and The Pursuit of Happyness have happy endings, adopting a more agathic ecological stance in terms of the film's structure. This has the effect of giving the audience great joy after seeing our relatable protagonists' good fortune after so much of the contrary.
I'm cleaning up and I'm moving on, going straight and choosing life. I'm looking forward to it already.
Shakespeare typically goes in a contrasting direction, giving us an entirely pessimistic finale. Our protagonists usually perish, alongside with what they were fighting for. This is not necessarily to say that usually evil becomes victorious, as if we look at the example given earlier, Macbeth, he, by the end of the play, unintentionally found himself as the villain of the story. Now, this, of course, has the effect of leaving the audience in an extreme sadness, completely different to the happy endings I gave for the modern examples. Now, let's talk about this. Whereas the Shakespeare's take on the tragedy finale is more accurate to the ideas behind the genre, the contemporary take makes the audience feel strong emotion also, and perhaps stronger emotion in the contrast of optimism amongst a story of dread. And of course, with this, to decide which style of finale is better, it's completely down to personal preference. But, that's not for this section, that's for So yeah, pretty much what I said before. Which is better? What level of connection should the audience feel towards the characters? What sort of ending is more fitting? And yeah, I said before, this is down to opinion. But personally, as I've already alluded to, I find the modern examples superior. Specifically because how it fulfills the genre's purpose, which is to best manifest sadness within the viewer. As I've said, this is due to the increased relatability aspect. Now, yeah, those happy endings are less fulfilling of the previously mentioned genre's purpose, but I believe the contrasting finale all the better leaves an effect on the audience through how we are more likely as audience members to absorb the lessons the creator is trying to employ, due to how we see our characters in the end result with joy. Now this debate of which ending, happy or sad, delivers the morals of the stories better is near identical to the debate of whether positive or negative reinforcement is more effective. My conclusion is that the point of modern tragedy is also to leave the viewer with a sense of relief once the poor circumstances of our characters finally lift and they receive their much deserved rest. I think the core message of tragedy most of all is to teach the audience not to take anything for granted. Whatever joys they possess, they must value. And I think that represents what's at the core of modern tragedy. But at the core of more dismal and traditional classical tragedy is a more morbid and depressing communication towards the consumer to not make the same mistakes as the characters within the story did. Now, in complete summary of my article, the way humans seemingly torture themselves with the stories under the banner of the tragedy genre is for a multitude of reasons. The most poignant of which is to drive the intended meaning behind a work to better embed through the powerful and memorable emotions they elicit, but to primarily deliver the common theme that life should not be taken for granted. Because at the moment, whether you're deserved of it or not, all joys could be stripped from your life in an instant. So take warning, dear watcher. Persevere through whatever hardships may come your way, because it could always be worse.